So I was taking a look through the Hockey News' top 30 unrestricted free agents of 2020 list that they have on their website, and I came across an interesting name at the number 6 spot as the top-ranked free agent for this year's class, and that is the Florida Panthers right winger Evgenii Dadonov. Now, the reason I'm talking about Evgenii Dadonov today is because, for one, I've always noticed him on the highlight reel as being an insanely efficient scorer and a good scorer, a really skilled scorer, but he's never talked about that much. And since I don't follow Florida, and unfortunately most of the hockey fans don't really care about Florida, because even though it sucks because they have a lot of good players down there that more casual hockey fans should know because they're really, really good players. They just unfortunately don't have playoff teams, so because of that, and all of that stuff. But I think that Dadonov, because of playing in Florida, he might have actually, he could be a really, really beneficial free agent for a lot of people and a lot of teams at a term that isn't too long and maybe at a cap hit that's cheaper than going after, say, like a Mike Hoffman. Even though Mike Hoffman's 30, I think because Mike Hoffman's more established and other players like Mike Hoffman that are more established on the forward side of the free agents, I think because of Dadonov, if a good GM would go in there, they might be able to get him at an affordable price. Now, going through Dadonov's stats, if you're unfamiliar with it, Dadonov actually was drafted by Florida originally in the third round with the 71st overall pick in 2007, but he came over, he only played 4 games with the team in 2009-2010. That was his first time playing in the National Hockey League. After that, he played again in 2010 and 2011, and also the following season in 2011-2012, but he only played 36 games in 15 games, putting up not very many points, and after that he left the NHL and went back to the KHL and spent his time in Russia and his playing career in Russia. But in 2017, Evgenii Dadonov came back over to the Florida Panthers, and he came back over to the NHL, and that is where things start to get very, very interesting if you go over and take a look at his points and his offensive production since returning to the NHL. In 74 games in 2017-2018 for the Florida Panthers, Evgenii Dadonov combined for 28 goals, 37 assists for 65 points, and a plus 10. Now, those are fantastic numbers from a guy who came over who really, when you compare it, his numbers didn't change at all. Like his KHL numbers, when you look at what he put in the KHL for regular, consistent seasons after playing there, 19 goals, 23 goals, and this final year in the KHL before returning to the NHL, he put up a 30-goal season. His numbers haven't really changed at all since coming over from the KHL, which is something that's very interesting. Now, there's a lot of times where you will have a good, effective KHL player who is scoring at a high rate in that league, but when they come over, it doesn't so much translate. Even if they're very skilled players like Evgenii Dadonov, and even if players like Evgenii Dadonov had already been scouted for North American ice and playing in the NHL, it doesn't mean that it's always going to translate well after they go back and, the back and forth and all that stuff, because it is a different game they play over there in Europe. But the fact that he could come over in his first really full season in the NHL and put up a 65-point campaign in 74 games is very, very impressive. And what gets even more impressive is when you go and you take a look into the 2018-2019 campaign he had with the Florida Panthers, where he had another back-to-back 28-goal seasons. This year, he went up in production and assists and had a season with 28 goals, 42 assists for 70 points. That's pretty good. Now, you cannot complain with that. That is, for playing a full 82 games, getting 70 points, scoring back-to-back 28 goals, and improving your assist total, that's great. That's what you want to see from a player. This year, he did decline a little bit, but we can't even know how much points he could have had because of the season being suspended and paused and all of that, because this season in 69 games, he had 25 goals, 22 assists for 47 points. Now, yes, his assist total dropped, but what's very interesting is the fact that if you would have kept playing out the season, I could easily see Evgenii Dadonov getting to, depending on, with everything and how the season played out, I could see him getting to another 30 goals, getting his most goals in the NHL this season. That's a lot to think about, and now that he is a free agent, it's very interesting to look at, because when you actually go in and look at Evgenii Dadonov's numbers since returning to the NHL, he has put up some really, really good numbers. So for the past 3 seasons, he's got 81 goals and 101 assists for 182 points in 225 NHL games. So that is quite a bit. 182 points in 225 games since returning in 3 seasons. That is a very, very interesting number, and that is why I think a lot of teams will actually be looking at him that are kind of in that bubble where they're wild card, maybe a little bit, maybe number 3 in their division, but they're still young, they're still trying to improve. Adding a guy like Evgenii Dadonov could be exactly what they need. if it was up to my guess, now, like, we all know he's a great, what makes him a good player overall, like, if you have to look at it as why a young team would want to go after him, is because he's a great goal scorer. He's an effective and efficient goal scorer. We've been able to see that. I just went over his stats with you, and you can see that he's been able to play exceptionally well, especially consistently when it comes to as being an offensive threat, that it is good to have that for consistency when you're a younger team, because consistency on the power play, consistency offensively, it can, you can go through droughts if you're a young team and if you're a young player in the NHL. So having a guy who is reliable, especially offensively, can be a really important piece for a team moving forward in their, rebuild or in their progression as a team and trying to get to win the Stanley Cup. Now, he does have soft hands, which is something that a lot of people might not really realize about him. He does have some dirty dangles in there if you look at his highlight reels. But overall, when you combine all of his skills together, it's just a consistent offensive threat that teams are scared of. As you can see, putting up 81 goals in 225 games is quite a bit. And actually, for another quick stat, he is actually 11th in scoring among right wingers, right in between Patrick Laine and Alex Radulov since returning to the NHL in 2017-2018. So that's a pretty impressive stat, to be 11th in goal scoring and almost a top 10 ranked winger in the NHL and never getting talked about. It's something that I realize that a lot of teams that are rebuilding might be able to get him on that market, because Dadonov might, fall down the list depending on his market and depending on what type of, money and caps he is looking for in free agency. Since he's getting older, and he is 31 years old, I believe. Yes, he's 31 on my notes. He is obviously not going to get a long-term contract. Teams aren't going to really look at him. If it was up to me, I could see him getting a contract between 3 to 5 years. 5, I think, is way too long even then. Like, if I'm a GM, I'm giving him a 3-year deal. But I do think, since it's free agency and some GMs get stupid in free agency, I think that there could be some more term given out that maybe he shouldn't get at his age. But the only reason I think that isn't because I don't think he's going to be a bad player 5 years down the road if you're to sign him to that. I think the term and the value of his contract in money-wise is not going to translate well with, years on his contract. Because if you're looking at his stats, how well he's played, the players around him and what they're getting with similar numbers in consistent years like that, I could easily see Evgenii Dadonov getting a raise from his $4 million contract to easily 6, anywhere to 7. I definitely could think an overpayment could happen for him. It happens in the NHL quite a lot in free agency, where we're all known that because of free agency, a lot of GMs and organizations look at it as like a quick fix type of thing. Like, hey, there's a guy that's a top 6. We need to upgrade our top 6. Is he the best player for us availably on the market? Yes. Is he the best available for us, long term? No, but he's the best that we have right now. Let's pick him up and win with him. That's a lot of GMs and organizations, idea going into free agency. So because of that, I could definitely see a team willing to give him upwards to $6 to $7 million a season, maybe even more than 7. I could definitely see it getting in the range of $7.3 million. And I know that might sound, crazy, but his numbers, he's earned a contract very similar to this. Like, he's a very, very effective top-line player, and not only that, he's great for your power play. He's got 11 goals this season on the power play, and he's got back-to-back seasons of 17 power play point seasons. So that's pretty good to have 17 points on back-to-back seasons from your power play. That's a consistent threat, and it's what teams kind of looking to get. Now, long-term wise, I don't think that Dadonov, like I'm talking about with his age, the contract term being anywhere between 6 to 7.3, term being anywhere, in my opinion, to 3 to 5 year deal. I definitely think that a team that should sign him, or that will be looking at him, I think a team like the Devils or the Coyotes are going to be looking at a signing of Evgenii Dadonov this season, only because he kind of fits that mold on what type of players that those teams sign in free agency. If you look at the Devils, Evgenii Dadonov is the perfect type of player to play for the Devils. He's a quiet goal scorer who's effective offensively, who's efficient, who's going to do his job day in and day out. He's going to score for you, and he's got experience. He can be reliable, and he can help get your young guys going in the offense. If you put a guy like Dadonov on your power play, if you're New Jersey, that can really help spike it and get your young guys, offense going. You want to get Jack Hughes going if you're New Jersey, and bringing in a guy like Dadonov might be able to help him with that power play and get another threat there with him that can, with a heavy shot, who can score effectively and efficiently. That's something that young players like Jack Hughes need, and I think that it could be something that the Devils look at in signing to maybe a 3-year deal just when they're in this development window. But I also think that the Coyotes could also go looking to re-signing him, only because the Coyotes are one of those teams that we all know have lacked offensively in the last few years, and because of that, I think that they might look at Dadonov as maybe, a quick fix for the next couple of years while their offense, and they try to transition into more of an effective, as I should say, team offensively. So I definitely think that the Coyotes could look at signing him. Unfortunately, there are a lot of teams that could use Dadonov that I could say, like, hey, I would love to see, the Rangers get Dadonov. I would love to see the Islanders. I think the Dadonov on the Islanders would be great. I could say a lot of things like this. I could go and say how I think that putting Dadonov in Edmonton, which I think is a great move, I think that would be a great thing, but there's cap situations, right? This is realistically where I think that Dadonov will go. There are plenty of other options and better places that I think he would thrive in, and other places I would like to see him in before going to the Devils or Coyotes, but realistically, I could see him signing with those teams just based off what type of players they've signed in the past and what type of players they like and use. So I definitely think that he could fit that mold of what those rebuilding kind of bubble teams that are competing for a playoff spot, what they really need to do to add to kind of get to that next level and being that. I don't think he goes. I think that's where he kind of goes. I definitely could see Edmonton making a move for him if they're somehow able to create enough cap so they're not, hamstruck by getting him. Because, like I said, 3 to 5 years is what's going to take to get it done, I believe. I don't think he signs for much more. I think he's looking for a nice big payday and then he's going to be done. So overall, I think that's kind of where I stand on Dadonov, and I honestly think he will sign with the Devils. That is my guess, and I think if you had to put it finally at the end of the day, you had to ask me what I think Dadonov would sign for, my prediction is that Evgenii Dadonov will sign a 3-year contract with the New Jersey Devils valued at $6.9 million for 3 years, and he will play very well with the New Jersey Devils, and I think that's where he will go. So that is my guess. 3 years, $6.9 million for Evgenii Dadonov, signing with the New Jersey Devils. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you just keep browsing around on YouTube, you stumbled across this channel, stumbled across the video, maybe consider subscribing. Post all different types of hockey content, so if you're into that type of thing, definitely consider subscribing. If you're not new to the channel, returning viewers, hope you guys enjoyed the content. Thank you guys for all the support. You guys have been killing it lately. I really appreciate it. So with all that being said, guys, peace out, take care, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you so much for watching.